everyone. My name is Areti Daradimu. I am the editor of Smart Energy International and content director for Enlit Europe. I am joined here today with Robert Denda, the CEO of Gridspertise.
Hi there.
Hi, Robert.
Hi, nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you too. So, Gridspertise is a company dedicated to the digital transformation of power grids. It is focusing mainly in three topics: smart metering and grid edge digital technologies, digitalization of network infrastructure, and digitalization of field operation. Now, the European Green Deal and making Europe fit for the digital age are two central priorities of the Commission and go hand in hand. That is a quote, a direct quote from Kadri Simpson, the Commissioner of Energy. It is therefore crystal clear that the grid of the future will adopt cutting-edge technologies. And this is where Gridspertise comes along.
Yes.
What is your personal vision and that of Gridspertise for the grid in the near future?
Well, yes, thanks for the question. For sure, digitalization is really the key for the electricity grids of the future. And when we speak about digitalization, it means three aspects, actually, though. So one is to bring digital technologies within the management of the grid, so that hardware devices, IT systems, so that the operators of the grid actually gain more efficiency, have a more robust grid, and through those digital interactions between the different control elements, let's say, get the grid better managed. Then there is another piece to that, that is on the edge side of the grid, let's say, so the customers, the other stakeholders that are out there, let's say, they are also digitalized, right? So then this brings us to the third level, the interaction then between those different stakeholders. And this is really where the key is for the future, to orchestrate this interaction at a digital level of the different players to really make the energy system more efficient. And that brings me back then to the quote that you just mentioned. So without this digitalization, you cannot achieve, let's say, the goals that we all have. Yeah.
As we already said, the EU Commission already agrees with you, but to augment on that, what is your take on the action plan for the digitalization of the energy sector?
Well, the EU action plan is actually a really great move, I think, in the right direction. Here we speak about investments that will be made in the grid. I think if I speak of heart, 580 billion roughly, let's say, for this decade. And there's a huge investment in digital grid technology. So that is 170 billion just for the digital part alone in Europe. If we speak worldwide, actually it's much higher. There's overall, we speak about already today, roughly about 300 billion per year, might be increased to 500 or 700 billion over the upcoming years. So by 2030, there are huge investments that will be made. And also here in this sense, in the EU level, I think the right actions are being taken. And this will help, because without this digitalization, I think that is very important. You cannot get this change done in the industry, in the energy segment. Let's say the grids especially were built 50 to 100 years ago. They are old grids. They were built for another type of energy distribution, another type of energy generation, another type of customer. And in order to now being able to serve the modern customer, to integrate renewable generation, all of that in real time with this digital interaction that is so much required, you need to revamp those grids really through digital technologies.
Robert, you just gave me the excellent assist for my next question. You mentioned the grid, that it is old in Europe. So how can we accelerate digitalization in a pan-European level and still have a safe and resilient grid?
Well, actually, the digitalization helps you accelerate that the grid becomes safer and resilient, because it helps you to integrate in a faster way distributed renewable generation, for example, in order to manage the power flows, the peaks that you have when at local level, when you have new renewable generation, or further electrified consumption like electric mobility, but also heat pumps, cooling, and you get more and more peaks. So the system becomes very dynamic, and you need digitalization in order to be able to ensure this reliable quality of service to the customers. And at the same time, with this very distributed generation, also this distributed management of the different pieces is really needed. And also there again, digitalization helps. So actually you need it in all senses. Yeah.
When we talk about infrastructure and integrating renewables, I agree with you, absolutely. However, when we're talking about safety, I also mean cybersecurity here. So is it still safe? Because there are some fears that, what happened in Ukraine in 2015 is still something we remember and we talk about, although now with the war, nothing happened and it seems like we're doing well.
Yeah.
But what is
No,
your take?
of course, I mean, you're right. Cybersecurity is absolutely crucial and needs to be taken into account, into consideration from the beginning when you digitalize a grid. So it's cybersecurity by design is a must for any rollout of digital technologies. And you're absolutely right. Let's say today with it technologies, it's possible to create a cyber-secure, let's say, network and grid and ensure that the digital technologies that are being deployed in order to optimize the grid are safe. But of course, you need to do this consciously. You need to have the right knowledge, know-how, and this is not a one moment operation. Let's say this is an ongoing process, of course, and it needs to get set up correctly. And cybersecurity is, of course, very important there, yes.
And it is something that we need to take into consideration from the beginning. Exactly what you said. I couldn't agree more. So are the digital grids the true enablers of the future of distribution and generation alike or not?
Yes, because especially when you look at the integration of the generation, as I said before, the power flows vary so much, let's say, during the day. In the morning, you might have the power flow in one direction, in the afternoon in the other direction. At the same time, the customers change, right? They charge their electrical car in the future at a certain hour of the day. Then maybe they use it in another day. They move it around, place it to a different place, charge it there. So there's so much happening. These dynamics bring a great challenge to the grid. And so this digitalization of the grid is able to help with this challenge, to reconfigure even the grid according to the need. And all of those things, let's say, are enabled by digitalization. And that means then it makes the grids robust and capable of hosting this renewable generation. So this, in this sense, yes, absolutely, digitalization is the key to both.
Yeah. And is it also a key into helping DSOs in particular solving some of their current challenges and problems? And what are these current challenges and problems that DSOs are facing?
Well, one challenge is already, let's say, the speed in which the grids need to be renewed, updated, and reinforced. For example, if you take scenario A without any digitalization and scenario B with maximum digitalization, of course, in scenario A, apart from the additional cost that you need because it's not so efficient, it takes much longer because you will need to put out additional transformers, lines, and to reconstruct, let's say, the grid and reinforce the grid much more than when using intelligently the digitalization, because you still need to reinforce a little bit, and you need to, but you do it intelligently, and then you help through digital technologies to make this grid dynamic. So the grid becomes more flexible and reconfigurable, adjustable in real time. And this is really the key to that. So that one of the challenges is actually solved through the digitalization.
You know, when we talk about digitalization, we talk about the grid, it never ceases to amaze me how we talk about the grid as if it's only one. However, we live in a union with many countries, many grids, and various levels of progressiveness, if I may say so. Do you think that in a union like this, it's easy to promote or not to promote digitalization in a pan-European level for everybody, even though various countries have various rules and regulations, various openings to digitalization, etc., or it's not that easy?
Well, I think yes and no. The different countries' local context, of course, plays a role and makes maybe the way how things are rolled out, how digitalization, let's say, is employed is different in the different countries. Does not necessarily need to be the same. It's also not needed because also the grids are not the same. I now was speaking mainly about distribution grids. When you speak about the pan-European, of course, you add also the transport networks. And but if you, in terms of, let's say, the local needs, let's say, are different, but the technologies behind are basically the same. That is the nice thing. Both from the cloud part, the IT part, the edge computing part, the control elements in the grid are pretty much the same, with different configurations, on different, let's say, particular versions and so on, but the overall concept is really the same. Yeah.
Yes. However, my question was more about the diversity in the countries in adopting and
Okay, yes.
yeah.
Well, if you look at the adopting, I think there's some leapfrog opportunities right now as well, because I think some late movers in that field now have on the other side the advantage they can already rely on the second, third generation of technologies that today are available that already bring much more advantage and without going through different generations. So I think, of course, in the near future, the idea, the vision is that we all come in all the different countries to the same level, roughly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. You know, this reminds me discussions we had last year during Enlit 2021, where Gridspertise, as a very, very young company, was introduced to the world. And it was in Milan also. So how has the company evolved since then?
Well, we had a very good evolution during this first year of operation. We launched different new technologies like the quantum edge device for edge computing, for example, some technologies in the digital twin area in terms of technologies. We had an expansion from the countries where we were already present from the beginning in Europe and in Latin America mainly. We now opened also a branch in the US, in India as well, so we have a geographical expansion. We hired also quite many people, engineers and people that are now on board with Gridspertise. So there's an overall growth plan, and also very recently we had a change also in our capital structure. We were born, as you know, let's say 100% NL,
Yeah.
and now we're moving towards 50% of NL, let's say having also 50% of a financial partner, CVC, on board, and that brings us also to a very good position, let's say, to have an arm length distance, let's say, from NL, which brings all the benefits from being having this huge group behind. On the other side, we also have all the speed and flexibility to move on the market, also helping distribution system operators all over the world in this competitive scenario with the knowledge, with the DNA that we have, where we come from system operation and tech company at the same time.
And what are the next steps for Gridspertise? What are we going to discuss next year in Paris?
Well, we will hopefully have some more news on our growth. We are really looking forward, let's say, to further complete the portfolio, helping our customers, helping them leapfrog in their digitalization journey, and also all over the globe, not just, let's say, here in Europe and the countries, let's say, that I mentioned before.
Fascinating. I can't wait to hear more next year. Thank you very much, Robert, for this interesting discussion.
Well, thank you already.
And thank you all for watching us. Remember, you can catch on this interview as well as many others at enlit.world.